So, do you get nervous before you perform?
Well, I don't really think of myself as a performer when I tell the Navajo stories.
Why not?
The important thing is the stories, not the storyteller.
What do you mean?
Navajo storytellers use this word a lot when they tell a story. Jene. Jene means it is said. The storyteller uses it to remind us that the story doesn't come just from him. It comes from a whole history, a whole culture. The storyteller is sharing part of what he's learned from his family and friends.
It's a gift.
Exactly. A gift to the community. You know that Dakota story I was telling? It's not quite ended. I think I can tell it while we finish up. The warriors had defeated the enemy and returned home. A certain young warrior now had his story to tell. But not only did they bring back stories of their victory, they brought back the story of a new song, and they shared it with the people.
Keep the story going. Lee? Lee!
That's what today's performance is for, to keep the stories alive. I think Wishbone knows what I'm talking about.
Finally, a little recognition.
Either that or he's hungry.
Oh, ye of little faith, Ellen.
Well, ready to go?
Yep.
Oh, why don't we take my car? I think we can all fit. Okay.
I guess Wishbone thinks he's coming with us.
He really should be there. I mean, it is a family event, and he is a part of the family.
Listen to the man. He knows what he's talking about.
He's right, Mom.
Come on, Ellen. You love me, don't you?
Oh, all right.
Yes! Thank you, Ellen.
Come on, Wishbone.
Can I drive?
Today, we've come together to celebrate stories. We've heard a story that my grandmother shared with me, her grandchild. We've heard stories of sisters and brothers. We've heard stories of a father told by a son. Now, I want you all to imagine that we're sitting around one enormous kitchen table. At this table, there's a place for everyone. At this table, there's time for everyone's story. We take turns talking, laughing, listening.
Even the dog gets to sit at this table.
Our hearts beat together as we listen to the story. We speak the story because the story speaks to us. At this table, people, animals, plants, wind, water, fire, past, present, future. All creation comes together. At this table, words become images. Our speaking turns to singing. Our walking turns to dancing. At this table, we are all related. Everybody'd be sitting at the table, and pretty soon there'd be stories. Stories about things that had happened just a few hours ago, or stories that happened at the beginning of Navajo time. It all went together. I grew up with the stories and in the stories. As a child, I listened to learn the story, to remember the story, so that later on I'd be able to tell it myself. Especially the old stories of my ancestors. Each story is a path, a trail that leads to a good place every time I follow it. Of course, it's fun to hear the stories for the first time, too. You follow the trail, but you don't know where it's going to lead, or what you're going to find along the way. That reminds me of a story.
You can sniff out Wishbone books and other great things to read at your local library. Funding for Wishbone provided by annual financial support from PBS viewers like you. What? You say you want something to do? Well, try this. Gather up your humans, put them in the car, and hightail it to your local library. Ha ha! There's something for the whole family at the library. Adventure, comedy, mystery. So hightail it to your local library. It's a family thing. Only if you want a book on the top shelf, bring someone tall. Gonna get some assistance here.